Hi, welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya, and today we have a very special honor to have two of the most amazing growers and breeders of cannabis in Northern California. Leo, last name I'm
Stone.
Stone, and Mean Gene over here is. They're a team and a combination, but what I want to kind of try and do is these guys have a rap when they get into talking about strains and so on and crossing, and I want to see if I can kind of pull it out of you, right? Because
Conjure the demons.
So, but what was the strain that you won with the year that you won the cannabis, the Emerald Cup?
Camdog Special Reserve.
Camdog Special Reserve. Okay,
Yeah.
so and I've grown that, but for me it was one of those plants that showed female at the very, very, very end, kind of just around after June 1st.
Takes forever.
And if it comes after June 1st, it's never going to catch up. My feeling, if you put it in before like June 15th, it'll catch up. So, but it was a great thing. So where does Camdog come from?
Nobody really knows where it comes
Oh,
from. Like,
come on, give me a break.
The true
like,
origin.
Yeah, like the origin was.
Everyone knows where the
is
seeds get, like how I got cherry pie.
Yeah, where it
bag
came
seed.
from.
But I can say who bred it.
Mm-hmm.
Camdog all comes from bag seeds, and nobody who's worked with it knows who bred it.
Yeah, so
originally. So
the farthest back it goes to like Crested Butte, Colorado. But there's some stories saying that pound was copped at a dead show from Northern California. So there's like a lot of different stories.
Crested Butte, Colorado.
Crested Butte, Colorado.
So were they trying to grow it there, or just ended
was
up there on a deal? Or?
I knew one of the guys, and his name was Joe Brand, and he's credited with the quote unquote chem father, where he actually bought the pound, had the pound that was that had the flowers that had the seeds in there, and then from those seeds, then it's history from there. Then they had the first Camdog 91, and then the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the A, B, and C and D. But what Camdog's crossed with, like, nobody really knows.
But have you crossed like Camdog with other stuff then since then?
Absolutely. Like, to get the Special Reserve, it was because I couldn't find reliable Camdog seed on the market. So the next best thing was Stardog, was JJ out of New York. This breeder named JJ has been working with a lot of chem strains, and he had the Stardog cross. And so I scored some Stardog seeds via some of Shiloh Massive's buddies that got from
Are you following all this? This is like a
like when he got the seeds,
you know what he's talking about?
Like he got the seeds from Cushman,
stuff.
so I had these F1 Stardog seeds, and I made F2s so I could really select a male.
Stardog, because we had a dog Star for a while.
Well, the Stardog's different. Stardog is Trey Dog crossed with Double Dog, and Trey Dog is a Camdog number 4 cross Afghani, and then Double Dog is 2 times a Camdog crossed together, and together JJ made the Stardog, and so it was like one of the most reliable.
See, that's a wrap, man.
It was like one of the most reliable Camdog seeds you could get on the market. And I had this really cool Camdog 4 kind of back cross clone that came off of Spyrock that I was doing in depths up on Black Oak. That was amazing because it got really big, really heavy, but it turned really brown really fast, and it was really gassy. So I put some pollen on there, and then I did a few back crosses where I take it back to that same Camdog clone and take a different male from each subsequent generation and put that on. And so the Special Reserve was a result of that. Was just trying to make, stabilized Camdog seed, out of
I
that
see.
floor.
And then is it stabilized pretty much?
Yeah, it was the last version we came out. It was consistent as clone.
So how do you two guys work together on your thing? Are you each working your separate thing and then you kind of brand it together?
Yeah, well, that's like something like the Black Lime Reserve. Was the first thing that we put out, and he had pollen from the Camdog seeds that he was making, and he gave me a jar of it was like his last little jar of the Cup winner, and I had my Black Lime at the house, and I actually dropped the Black Lime bud into the jar, and showed it to everyone in the house, and everybody was like, "Where'd it go?" Like you couldn't see because it looked just like it. So I was like, "Well, this might come out cool." So go ahead and give me some of the pollen that you selected from your favorite male, and I'll put it on this clone of my Black Lime that I really like, that I call Lime 1, which is just one clone that's like a good one. Like what you guys were smoking was Lime 1 crossed with a male that I pulled out of it, so it was a back cross to that plant. So then the Black Lime Reserve is Camdog Special Reserve male on on a black lime clone.
I see.
You know, so then when those
so
come
you can't
out
make
and they
seeds
look
from
good.
clones. People also say it's hard to make seeds from clones. No?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
I've been misinformed on
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
So, because you guys also made it in the Pines, right? Who is it that developed that one?
Well, in the Pines, he actually knows the guys like Derek. You know Derek.
Derek, yeah.
And
he
Derek
won with that.
And Derek got it from his buddy.
That's the only one that was virtually unanimous.
From Doug. I think that was a Doug.
From Doug, right. Who also had won a couple of times. That was the whole Boonville contingent that won for a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I saw the In the Pines, I was like, wow, I have something I call La Pina, which is a pineapple smelling strain.
Oh yeah. That
I thought was really, really similar. You know, so I was like, oh well, this would make a cool cross. And so it wound up that we did the opposite way. He had the clone from Derek, and which isn't a common clone. It's just something that only
Derek, I think, originally said he got it from some dispensary in Fort Bragg or something like that.
Possibly,
originally cloned.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine that. Yeah. So the seeds I wound up giving him the pollen to go ahead and do the pollination. So it was my Pina male, and then the In the Pines clone that he had from Derek.
I see.
So it's the seed is in the Pines, but it's actually In the Pines. When you read it, it says what the In the Pines is, and then it says crossed with my pineapple male, which I call Pina. And Pina goes all the way back to seeds that I first got in 94, 95, and that was actually the first clone I ever took and circulated in 95, somewhere around there. So that was like the first thing that I ever selected is in that seed that is the In the Pines seed.
Wow.
Which isn't true. In the Pines is
so the original one came from a clone too, is that what you kind of
Yes,
say?
and the In the Pines, the In the Pines is a name for a clone that came out of a cross, which is actually Pineapple Thai Cross Master Kush. Yeah. So there's technically the In the Pines seed that we have isn't technically really like what people know as the In the Pines,
right?
But it's really the only seed that is from the In the Pines,
right?
But it's not.
Well, no, when we love it now, and it's turned out to have a lot of CBD profiles.
And that's coming from from my pineapple.
I see, but for us, it's also the fact that it's not quite in the Pines. It's got that fruit, that little Hawaiian kind of thing in there, or something like that, from the pineapple. What you're saying, because it doesn't have quite the pungency as the original In the Pines has.
It's not quite as sharp. Yeah.
That kind of piney stuff. So, yeah. So, well, let's see. What are your new things you're working on as far as that? Well, maybe you don't want to talk about the new crosses and new strains or something like that. Well,
we're always working on new things. We're always trying to develop new strains. I'm just trying to focus more on, what I'm going to focus on. Because when it comes like really breeding, Jackson's really, he's really the master at what he knows to make. Like when we were on this show and I was explaining it, like I like to build race cars, and I like to take other people's parts and kind of build my machine. But Jackson has his tool shop where he makes tools to make the parts to make the car, and his approach to it's a lot different. And so so I take his lead a lot on as for breeding, because as growers, like I'm really passionate about mainly like the cultivation part.
So when did you grow your first plant then?
Wow. My first attempt? My first attempt was when I was...
My first attempt, I was Miracle Grow. So,
yeah, it was when I was like 17, and it didn't work out good at all. I really didn't get my feet wet until I was in the Army, and I was intelligence, and there's a lot of... that's a whole different story, but I was hanging out with a lot of German college students, and so... a bunch of my friends were biochemists from the University of Mainz, and they were really into cultivating weed.
Kannst du wirklich Deutsch sprechen?
Yeah, ich kann kleine Deutsche. Yeah, meine Deutsch ist scheiße.
That's all right. But you were hanging out with these German guys, and they were scientists doing right?
Yeah, so they were they were doing their own grows on their apartments. They were blowing up apartments in Mainz, and I was doing, my thing on the side.
What do you mean they were blowing up apartments? What do you
mean? They
were
growing in apartments.
I see. Please, it's not what you mean. They were growing.
They're in the military, but they weren't blowing They were blowing them up like weed growers.
Right. So there's a certain slang that happens. So anyway, so they were growing in their own apartments.
Yeah, so they were growing in their own apartments, and we knew each other because, I was a big fan of hash, and my friends that were hanging out were big fans of hash. And so I went for a long time without smoking flowers. Came off this deployment one time, and this guy gives me this weed, and it's this super lemon haze, and it was so strong, and I was a super stoner.
Did that come out of Amsterdam? That sort of seed stuff?
I think that particular seed stock came out of Amsterdam, but this was something that they got from regular seed, and they were breeding. So it was the first time I actually saw people make seeds. But this weed made me throw up, and I was freaking out in the bathroom.
And
I thought I was a good seasoned stoner beforehand. Like I was really into smoking hash. I started smoking hash in Japan because it would come from Morocco when I was living there. I grew up there till I was like 19. And I smoked heavily when I was off deployments. If you were able to like dodge, the urinalysis test. So when I smoked this, it totally changed my life. And I was like, "What did you guys do? That strain was crazy." He's like, "No, it's just the way we grow it. It's just the way we grow our weed." And it was all organics. And the first time I was really introduced to people doing things organic, these guys are really conscious about their food. I was like a robot at this point where I was eating like a lot of processed food. I really wasn't conscious about what I was putting in my body until I met these guys who were growing pot. And I was like, well, I want to do this too. And, I've always liked weed. And so they really put me on. That's where I started collecting my strains. Really, I started, really doing my research. And
was that in the 90s sometime?
No, this was in like the late 2000s.
Like, so you're a real newbie.
Yeah, like
real newbie, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's like an original in a certain sense, right?
Yeah.
But somehow you're kind of making it work, right?
It's like, really, yeah, it's weird. It's weird how things come together, because, really in a nutshell, like shady people, like, I'm not saying we're all shady, but like in like the white collar or military
creative
government
people.
world,
We're another
creative
world.
people that rebellious people like to commingle together, and so that's kind of how I got into my thing, and, and there's other, gray,
Well, see, one of the things I've been talking with a lot of people about is that we have our culture, which is that based so much on trust.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've always been at that fringe area, right? And so you have to be able to sort of, figure someone out pretty human just on their vibe. Can I really trust this person, right? Because, hey, I could end up in jail just by talking to this person.
Yeah,
right?
Really.
So it develops kind of a sixth sense. Right?
Yeah.
And in sixth sense, you get a feeling that says, oh, this is a brother.
Yeah.
Or this is a sister. Right? And, and so you get it from the look in the eye and the feel and so on and so forth.
He's cool. I trust
yeah, right. He's cool, right.
Yeah.
And so, or when the old days, in the hippie days, we say, oh yeah, she's ahead, he's ahead. They're ahead, right? And so it was like a way of saying, okay, we've actually moved to another kind of consciousness through the blessings of the herb, and also the blessings of meeting other people who've also had an experience and sort of give us a basis for that sort of thing. And so, it's nice to have the tradition of the local area, and then you come in and add because you also have a great design element, right? With the way you've done Aficionado, it's all, the black packaging and everything also beautifully done and so on. And it all just says quality right there. So, anyway, it's just amazing to have you two guys here because it's, I'm really glad to be friends with you guys because it's really important. I keep learning more about how to grow. And now you mentioned stuff. When did you first hear about organic growing?
Organic growing really was how I originally saw everything done. I actually found out about like chemical growing later from people going, "Oh, you're going way back there in the woods. You could just go ahead and just grab one bag of this. You can feed your whole garden a lot of times with this right here with Smurf juice,
What was it?
Whatever, Grow More, Peters, Miracle Grow. Basically
right.
30-10-10.
Lawn fertilizer.
30-10-10 and 0-50-30.
Oh, no, really?
All that kind of stuff. But I never really got into using it. Like we dabbled with it a little bit and
because you're back to 3 and 4 ounces under the trees, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, hey man, you can get pounds with this stuff, right?
Well, no, it wasn't. It didn't ever. It was. It's just a matter. It's all a matter of like the volume of carrying stuff. It was like, okay, well, you're gonna go back there 2 miles across that hill. You can either carry all of this stuff back there for all these manures and all this different stuff, or you can carry this. And then there was the question too of a lot of the stuff that is rich, even if it's not necessary. Like you can use chicken manure and have bears come and pick your pots up and throw them down the hill looking for the chickens underneath the pot. And that's no fun,
Right.
As soon as are we getting there?
Yeah, but it's like you're also, crawling under the manzanita bushes, right? So how many bags of soil can you really
No, and
carry?
it's hard, and you already have to bring back. You have to already have to bring back a certain amount of amendments and stuff, no matter what.
Right.
So then it makes it seem like, oh, this is good, but after a while, what you realize is that your dirt gets worse and worse when you use chemicals.
Oh yeah.
So if you grow a chemical garden 3 years in a row, the third year you go, why isn't our dirt good anymore? And you realize you do your research and you go, well, it's salted up.
Yeah, your
That's
soil
why
is
that's
salinized.
why the big boys who use chemicals throw their dirt away every year. I've seen people take their whole scene and throw the whole thing in the creek
People
next
used
to
do
their
that
greenhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's because they're using chemicals. And meanwhile, their buddy right over here is going, I don't know, I've been using my dirt for 12 years and my plants get bigger every year.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like one of those things where I saw it grown organic. I was taught this is how you do it. This is the best way to do it. It's how you get the highest grade. And then it was like, oh well, we'll try this. And then you try it and you go, it doesn't work, and you go back to organics. Just like everyone else in agriculture has done.
They're going to have to, for sure, right?
Because everybody salts their land, and they go, well, our land's worthless.
Exactly. No, I've heard it sometimes around grapevines, the actual soil right underneath is rock hard and kind of whitish because of that calcification. When it evaporates, the grainy stuff, floats to the surface and coats it and so on. Yeah. So, well, see, that's the thing. Organic is a natural way, but actually even more than organic, what we're trying to get to is having stuff that's, we're trying to find what's sustainable, what we can just keep on our own property and not bring in much alien stuff.
Permaculture and biodynamics and everything.
So are you guys doing that now? Are you working towards that?
A little bit. I mean, I have a horse right now in my house, and basically I can go and get enough manure to put, probably right now I can put this much horse manure on top of my pots. That's a lot of nice, when it's composting, you're putting that on top. You're putting on worm castings and doing other stuff, putting on cover crops, giving them the micros and everything, like from different semi-sustainable things, like rock powders and stuff. It's
and also composting teas. Are you guys working with composting teas?
What I started doing is I was transitioning. I was really following what Dr. Elaine was doing with her compost teas, where a lot of people aren't brewing them anymore.
Elaine Lawrence?
Dr. Elaine Ingham. She's one of the foremost experts on.
And she's coming up the area soon to give some lectures. I'm going to go. I think I really want to learn from that. So anyway, her prescriptions.
Yeah, so we started doing something where we started actually putting the actual tea elements, ingredients into the soil, and then watering with different humic acid inputs or different molasses inputs if it's vegetative and whatnot. And so there's new ways that you could get the same effects without all the hard work, without the huge bins, without the aeration. I see. That you could let your soil do all the hard work for you.
I see. Well, that's fascinating. Actually, we kind of have to wrap up now on that note because we're running out of time again. And thank you very much, Leo and Mean Gene, for your time.
Thank you.
And thanks again.